throughout the first year, going through the show by show, not only have we enjoyed the announced team of Dutch and Bob Caudle, but our fans have really bought into that as well and realized the chemistry that Dutch and Bob had. We know Dutch leaves to go down and book in Puerto Rico. Why did Bob Caudle end up leaving?
At that point, and let me start by saying the reason why I loved Bob and Dutch. If you notice on the pilots, I did it with Bob one time and Dutch did it the other time. And that's because simply we both had exposure on WCW television as color guys. And I wanted to make the pilots different and just show that we had different personalities available and etc. But I always wanted to be Dutch because I was already managing. I was already, fucking screaming at the monitor backstage, at the truck, and the guy with the little gimmick in his ear. Last thing I wanted was to be tied down to the desk. So I was never going to be the commentator, and Dutch was just fucking great. So they, obviously I wasn't going to make any changes until finally Dutch got the book in Puerto Rico and had to go. And then you guys helped me. When Dutch left, who sat in with Bob?
That would have been Les.
Yeah,
that's right, Les. Because when we first started, Les had some type of job or employment that he had in Cincinnati at the time that prevented him from coming down there on like Mondays and shit, right? Which is, we always did our TV tapings on Mondays. And it'd be quite a haul for him, and he'd have to, miss a lot of Tuesday also. So anyway, he was doing the special videos that we'd shoot at our big events in Knoxville, Johnson City or whatever that was on weekends. So Les started sitting in, and Les and Bob were good. There wasn't really the counterpoint of a color guy, but they were two pros, and they both had identity in my kind of hybrid area because Bob Caudle had been a Mid-Atlantic guy for years, and with WCYB, they'd been seeing Crockett TV in the Tri-Cities for years, and they broadcast in North Carolina, but Les Thatcher was the Knoxville guy, so for that end, he was a legend. And that worked perfectly, but then something very important happened. I believe that was at the point that JR became available, right, when Bob left.
Yes. Because
for whatever reason, they decided to fire JR, and we still were talking on the phone, and he didn't even say anything like I'm available. I was just getting the scoop from him on what the fuck happened with his actual real job. And to be honest, here now it's been over 2 years, and Bob Caudle, who is he 88 or 89 now, or is he 90 by now? The point is, this is a man in his late 60s. He was only 20-something years ago, but he's still right. He lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is way the fuck over in the middle of North Carolina, and he was making some hellacious trips, especially when we started taping more and more toward the Tennessee side and the Eastern Kentucky side than the Carolina side. And he was coming in a lot of times with fucking his shirt unbuttoned, and poor Bob, and he's the nicest man in the world, but his hair disheveled and his bags thrown over his shoulder, and he's huffing and puffing because he's walked up a hill from the cow pasture that he had to park in this fucking lonely high school gym in Hayside, Virginia or whatever. So he was not really going to complain because he was a wonderful man and he liked it, but at the same time, the trips were getting hard on him. And I asked JR, I said, JR, do you want to do something? And he said yes. And at the time also, Dennis Brent, who was friends of JR's friend of mine from way back, and later worked in the WWF office, etc., was doing the hotline stuff. And we got our own Smoky Mountain hotline, and Dennis was helping facilitate that, and JR was doing a thing for it. So instead of me paying Bob Caudle, bless him, just for his night's work to drive to hell and back in these mountains, most time by himself, or if he drug his poor wife with him, and every once in a while he'd ride with Ron Wright, because Ron Wright lived over there for a while. But JR had a chance not only to get paid that night, but he had a piece of the 900 number, and we were trying to do some other things. So we made and then all of a sudden we had Jim Ross calling Smoky Mountain Wrestling Television, the voice of not only WCW at much of its heyday, but then also fresh off WWF TV. So that was, and the best in the business. So that was kind of a no-brainer for everybody all the way around.